The first prong is that there are people in the world who blame the Jews for absolutely everything, and that is pathetic. And
boom. You hear that, Myron? You hear that?
These people think that they worked out the secret of the world and they're based.
This is important. So many people on the right think that they've discovered the one answer to everything. It's just like leftists who blame victimhood for everything.
But when you put up this wall of every single thing is Jews, every single thing they've ever done, every single thing, you're just going to destroy destroy your own movement.
Did you just hear that, Myron Gaines? I hope you did, because this man is more competent and more respected than you in every domain.
Because when me, a half-black Muslim who defended Palestine, is being accused of being a Mossad agent, you may have gone too far. Perhaps.
It's interesting, though, because if you think about it, they don't believe in going too far, just like the left doesn't believe in going too far, because that's war on category. In this very interesting same way, we see identitarianism on the right has this same effect, where they reject the notion of logic and reason and rationality. And it's also the reason why they're not invited on these podcasts to talk to, because they're just going to spew this irrationality. There's no progress that can be made.
Far enough with blaming the rain on the Jews. It rained outside. You didn't have an umbrella. The Jews did it.
So major facts right now in a way that I'm so happy to see, especially as a Christian, because I've made a couple of videos about this before, describing this insane derangement low IQ people on the right have with Jews. And it's the exact same identitarian obsession that the left has with race and gender. And I'm not even going to say this is a problem on the right. This is like a problem with very, very low IQ people. But Myron Gaines, the leader of the Fresh and Fit podcast, has been absolutely taken and swamped by this total derangement against Jewish people. I used to look up to that guy. Now it's just simply impossible because he says so many low IQ things. And I'm so happy, especially with having Tate posters on my desk, to see Andrew Tate say that this is like absolutely insanely deranged. Take a listen.
Days after. And I was told not to say that. That's going to get you in a lot of trouble. But that's what I believed, so I said it at the time. And there's a lot of people online who are fervently anti-Jew and are very anti-Semitic. And I know who these people are. And you know these people are. A lot of them. Sometimes,
Kanye West.
Yeah, well, sometimes they have a point of view. And sometimes they just go way too far with it. So I think this whole argument is kind of two-pronged.
See, the difference between Andrew Tate and Myron, Andrew Tate is much higher IQ than Myron. If you look at chat, it's filled with ultra low IQ people who thought that they could find one thing to blame all their problems on, just like leftists blame victimhood and oppression and racism, which is really one thing, victimhood, for all the problems that they perceive in the world. And they're triggered. These low IQ people in the chat are triggered, spamming L. But of course, they're only really 5 to 10% of the population, just as on the left, it's 5 to 10% of the population is absolutely like mentally bankrupt.
The first prong is that there are people in the world who blame the Jews for absolutely everything, and that is pathetic. And
boom, you hear that, Myron? You hear that?
These people think that they worked out the secret of the world and they're based.
This is important. So many people on the right think that they've discovered the one answer to everything. It's just like leftists who blame victimhood for everything. This is not multivariable analysis. This is utterly ridiculous. This is the reason why Andrew Tate should have a conversation with Jordan Peterson, because this is high IQ.
And they blame Jewish people for everything. They're like, oh, but that's the Jews. What is? Race mixing is the Jews. Maybe they're attacking me for supporting race mixing. My dad is black, my mother is white.
Right, these people are incoherent, just like leftists.
Why do you think the Israelis called me and told me to say this? It's my upbringing. Right. Or they'll say, oh, but you can't get a girlfriend because the girls have all been subverted by the media. That's the Jews. How did the Jews keep you out the gym? Because your arms are skinny, bro. Like, how did the Jews stop you from being a man they want to fuck? Explain that to me. Like, they go so far.
Bro, so many losers are upset about this. And this is the unironic incels. The incels that are not redeemable, that don't want to improve themselves. These are the people that are actually like total freaks, and the people that on the red pill we want nothing to do with. Men that don't want to improve themselves are definitionally losers. And a lot of those guys fall into the category of people that blame Jews for everything.
They go so far with it. And if you try and point this out, you're instantly a Mossad agent. Even I get this. After defending Palestine and risking my life.
People have been searching for answers, and they found something that is not the answer, but they're so desperate for answers they want to cling to it. It's just simply, unfortunately, inadequate because it's not true, and reality wins.
Because they could have locked me back up, and I was told not to. They're still not happy with me because I don't go far enough with blaming the rain on the Jews. It rained outside. You didn't have an umbrella. The Jews did it. Right. So there's the psycho side of it.
Mm-hmm. But do you guys realize he just called Myron Gaines psycho? Because Myron Gaines has been doing this, like tweeting as if he has schizophrenia about the Jews almost every single day. It's insane. Look, I still follow Myron because I'm hoping that he's going to come to his senses one day, given that all the impressive men of Earth, meaning Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, etc., are self-evidently higher IQ than him and more accomplished. And so maybe he can redeem himself. And that's fine. People can redeem themselves. I'm totally cool with that.
Rational person who likes to see both sides of the argument. I would also argue it is interesting that it seems the only influence over the American government that we're not scared about or we don't measure is the Israeli influence of the American government.
See, this is intelligent. What Andrew Tate is doing here is intelligent because this is how nuanced conversation operates. It's not, you can't talk about the Jews, and it's not, you blame them for everything. These people are low IQ. Do you understand? Those two voices I just did are the same voices. They're just on the fringe left and the fringe right. It's literally the same thing.
It seems they do have some control over the American government. They do lobby heavily.
Right, and we should understand what happened after World War II so that the entire world, so that civilization itself was shaped in the image of this hysteria, this obsession with finding any possible victimhood identity, because we learned from World War II that victimhood above everything must be ended at any cost. It turns out that any cost is quite a high cost to pay when you also don't understand victimhood.
Nobody talks about it in a negative way. Whereas if the Chinese do it or the Russian do it, there seems to be a big problem. It doesn't seem to be measured when Israel does it, and nobody seems to be concerned by it. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, you can get someone on more qualified than me to discuss. There's people more qualified than me. I would argue as a rational, intelligent individual that the American government should be pertinently aware of all influences that are put on it.
Exactly. Literally all influences.
Shouldn't you measure them? I'm not saying...
And America first. It's so simple, bro. And I know most MAGA people like understand this and totally agree with me. It's just this fringe element.
Even stop them, but shouldn't you know? Because let me ask another question. This is a thought experiment. If you allow a nation to influence your nation and you allow it to happen unchecked, who's influencing the influencer? I don't know this at all. This is off the top of my head. Who says Israel's not being influenced by China, Russia, whoever? What I'm saying is they can be a conduit if you allow it to be unchecked. Right. So I understand,
that's what the CIA does.
That Israel seems to be the only country that can influence American politics without being checked. I understand that. I understand that's strange. I agree that should be measured. That's true.
And
however,
every thinking person, I think, well, maybe not. Yeah, every thinking person, nobody on the left, but every thinking person agrees with that, I think.
To argue that the Jews are the only reason why you're a little bitch hiding in your house at home, that's also bullshit. There's definitely a lot of irrationality on both sides. That's what I would say about that whole subject. And I think that people should be more rational and
unfortunately, it references, and I'll try not to go on too long about this, but it's incredibly important. This references what he was describing earlier, which is this mental derangement and inability to engage with reality that has resulted in Europe committing suicide by letting in endless illegal immigrants under the banner of rejecting category because it's discriminatory, because it is inherently oppressive. And when I say rejecting category, I literally mean doing warfare with the notion of coherence itself. This is how we have women trying to, interrogate the president of Poland, saying, what do you mean you're not going to take any illegal immigrants? And he just looks at her and says, yeah, of course I'm not, because that would be insane and it would be betraying my country. But the degenerately feminine leftist psyche and the leftist ideology is defined by feminine personality distributions scientifically. Jordan Peterson has talked about this. We know that these people that can't stand a multivariable analysis are inherently feminine. They're incompetent, and they worship their incompetence. And right now, this is plaguing the world.
Approach it rationally. But that subject seems to get people instantly into black and white camps. And that's
identitarianism, and that's dangerous. We should reject that. You should be an individual, and you should think for yourself. And not, also blaming anyone else for the reason you're a failure is inherently the most feminine beta thing a person can do.
Subjects that are hardest to discuss.
I love the break.
Like, imagine giving up your responsibility, individuality, because you think some person you've never met is the reason you haven't gotten what you want.
Where there's no subjectivity.
That's the part of the breakdown. See, this is because in this breakdown, the way you just eloquently put together, guess who can be right? Both sides.
And also, what you got to realize is what's happened here is dialogue just transcended everything. And this is the reason people don't want Tate to speak, is because they know he'll make sense, because he's intelligent, because he's higher IQ than Myron. They know this is going to happen. Dialogue fixes this inadequacy on the left and the right that is fringe, because we don't need that. We need high IQ conversations.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no, Trump did this, and that's he's owned. He's this. Maybe he's just being strategic.
Yeah.
No. But that side, they have control of everybody. Maybe they do have a little bit. No, they don't. Maybe they do. That's the subjectivity. The keyword you're using here is that.
Right. People that are free to think, they're not shackled to a groupthink. Groupthink is so disgusting.
We have to be able to do that more often. It was broken down so well the way you just did it right now. I don't mean to interrupt you. I just was really...
Thank you. But this is the interesting part, because there are certain subjects where it is instantly snapping to black and white camps.
Right.
And those are the problems that never get fixed.
Exactly. And to me, and I felt this way since I was 17, that is so inherently disgusting and wretched. And this is the reason why I was drawn to the highest IQ of public intellectuals like Jordan Peterson before Tate was on the stage. And now that we have Tate and Elon and Jordan Peterson, if you notice, all these people totally reject this pathetic identitarianism of only shilling for one, oh my gosh, Gaza, or oh my gosh, come on, bro, come on.
Those are the problems that never get fixed.
But if you notice, this is also the conflict the left is having nonstop with H3 and Hassan, the content nuke. It's because they couldn't get along between identitarian factions. Think about it. They can't think, but no one's surprised that they couldn't think, because they inherently reject the mechanisms of thinking, like reason, logic, rationality, as inherently oppressive, in alignment with left-wing ideology. This is why they're destitute. This is why they need an overhaul. The Democrat Party is in shambles because they demonize thinking. And they demonize thinking through putting a group membership above an individual identity. And as a matter of fact, Marxism says an individual identity is inherently oppressive, and you should only gain virtue. In fact, the only way to gain virtue is through a group membership. This is the most important thing. I'm so passionate about this.
Has to be subjectivity and discussion in all things, and both sides can have a point, and it has to be discussed at large.
People who believe that they found 100% answers in identitarianism are the lowest IQ failures of Earth, failures of the human species.
So it's actually, I would make this point, actually, for the people who are truly fearful of Israel and truly fearful of Jewish influence, you hinder yourselves by not being open to rational conversations, by not being invited on speaking podcasts, by not being open to ideas.
Correct. And then they act like this. Oh my gosh, I want to talk about this because this is so ridiculous. Then they act like the reason why we're not being invited on to like PBD's podcast is because you say the most insane, fringe, freakish shit. It's crazy. If you just play back some of the stuff you say, like if you read some of Myron's tweets out loud or some of these other people's tweets, it's insane shit. It's psychotic. It is crazy. You should check yourself into a facility sometimes. And any person that thinks Ye is not suffering like medical episodes, you're actually an abuser. You're not a good human, because you're taking advantage of somebody who's sick to prop up this pathetic identitarianism that you so desperately cling to because you're low IQ. But you're low IQ, so you don't understand what I'm saying to you right now either.
You don't accept that not every single thing on the planet is the Jews. If you want to be reasonable and responsible and have interesting and open conversations, you'll get a lot further. But when you put up this wall of every single thing is Jews, every single thing they've ever done, every single thing, you're just going to destroy destroy your own movement.
Did you just hear that, Myron Gaines? I hope you did, because this man is more competent and more respected than you in every domain.
Because when a half-black Muslim who defended Palestine, is being accused of being a Mossad agent, you may have gone too far. Perhaps.
It's interesting, though, because if you think about it, they don't believe in going too far, just like the left doesn't believe in going too far, because that's war on category. In this very interesting same way, we see identitarianism on the right has this same effect, where they reject the notion of logic and reason and rationality. And it's also the reason why they're not invited on these podcasts to talk to, because they're just going to spew this irrationality. There's no progress that can be made. And people can tell if you're dishonest. People can tell by listening to you if you don't believe in the notion of progress. This is the reason why so many Americans have rejected the left, because if you listen to what they have to say, they're just insane, but they're not redeemable either, because they don't believe in being wrong. They don't believe in engaging in debate. If you don't, okay, it's one thing, of course, to believe that all of your ideas are perfect, but what's even more dangerous, I think, is actually believing in identitarianism, believing that your club grants you counterfeit virtue, and as a result of being a part of a club, you're automatically right. That's the worst thing.
Guys, maybe you've gone a bit far, but I mean, I guess it doesn't cross their minds. Because I promote race mixing, because my mother's white and my father's black.
It's the univariable anti-intellectualism that is exactly the same on the left. It's so cool.
It looks like
it's so interesting to see that parallel nature.
Work for the Jews. So what can you do?
Well, Tate, you're hired. Don't worry. I'll get you.
I was about to
get you a discount. I'm going to get you a 10% discount.
Get the yarmulke.
I got you.
Get the yarmulke in here right now.
I wouldn't get one. We'll bring Tristan in.
I was about to say if I was
Go to the wall.
hired, where's my fucking money?
Save that money, Tate. Save that money.
Because they ain't paid on yet. And
Bro, that's what I say when people are on my X account, people are like, Jewish, because my name's Abraham. I'm like, actually, I'm Christian. And they're like, he's getting paid. I'm like, God damn, I wish I was getting paid to say what I think. That'd be nice. If anyone wants to pay me for what I have to say and think, go to abrahambir.locals.com.
But
we're going to get you another Protect Philippe.
But you know,
with the diamonds.
You know, it truly is interesting how many people cannot have a rational conversation ever. Because I am perfectly capable of arguing against every point I argue for. I'm perfectly capable of it.
So what you're supposed to do. That's
what
a
playing
reasonable.
See, that's what thinkers can do. But that concept is foreign. When you say that to a leftist, that sounds crazy. And the reason for that is because they don't believe in truth. And I've said this before, but I don't mean it as hyperbole. Leftists technically don't believe in truth, and the sooner the mainstream can understand this, the faster we can make progress. The left doesn't actually believe in the existence of a higher order that is coherent, because then they would be subordinate to it and judged by it. And that to them is unacceptable. So the left, technically speaking, does not believe in the concept of truth, and as a result, doesn't structure arguments such that they result in a coherent conclusion. They structure everything they have to say, their arguments, so that they defend their cult. So they defend their club. And it's exactly the same on the fringe right. These people don't believe that they're subordinate to a coherence, because they want to have a one-line answer for everything. For the left, it's victimhood. For the right, it's the Jews are the reason why my wife had a miscarriage. Or take your pick.
Reason should do that.
Absolutely. But these people are incapable of having rational, subjective conversations ever. And that is...
The ability for the mind to interface with rationality is a marker of being sophisticated, being the next layer of human.
Why we end up in the positions we end up in.
Great breakdown. We can move on from this topic and talk about something.
Fantastic. Dude, I'm so glad to have heard Andrew Tate say that, because that's really, really intelligent stuff.